Here it is, the beginning. Well, could start with an inhale, could start with an exhale. Which one is the beginning? Which one is where? At some point, you're kind of between inhale and exhale. At some point, you're somewhere between the beginning and the end. But this definitely feels like a beginning. But I still wonder, is that the exhale or is that the inhale? I could see it both ways. I could see letting everything go, letting everything release, becoming completely empty, like an exhale, that would be more of a beginning because you're empty and there's just pure potentiality. And so you let it all go, you exhale, you're empty, and then at some point, everything in you is crying out for breath, to inhale. But there's this place before you actually inhale, or as you're inhaling, where you're kind of in between the two. But still, I'm trying to think the inhale could be the beginning. By bringing it in, you're kind of birthing the moment. Anyway, I'm thinking about this way too much. But what I do know is that a threshold is both a doorway in and a doorway out, just depending on which way you're coming from. So if I'm coming from the inside and going to the outside, then the doorway is a way out. If I'm coming from the outside and coming back in, the doorway is a way in. And in both circumstances, the doorway is a beginning and an end. Again, maybe I'm just kind of wandering into these mystical things, but that's what I'm here for. And hopefully you are too. All right. Here's an actual story. I used to have cows, and I didn't grow up with cows, but I was learning as an adult, and they were always getting out. I always had loose cows, and I developed this kind of anxiety about it. I would have these dreams um, about the cows getting out, and usually, actually, it was actually true. I'd wake up from a dream, and there would be loose animals like horses loose and broken out, maybe broken out the neighbors' horses too. Had a whole impromptu fandango in the middle of town. That definitely happened. Or I'd wake up and there would be a bunch of bulls blocking the highway. I actually got a knock on the door in the middle of the night one night, and it was the sheriff, and he was asking, "Can you get your livestock out of the road?" And I guess the bulls had broken out and were just standing in the middle of the highway chewing their cud. Why there? I don't know. There was no grass in the middle of the road, but that's where they wanted to just stand and look right at the headlights while people waited. But yeah, I developed an anxiety about this eventually. And I remember I just gotten a milk cow and put her in with the horses, thinking that all the animals can hang out together. This would work out because all the animals they eat different things. Like one animal likes clover, one animal likes the timothy grass. And, then instead of having to go and cut down all the different grass types that, let's say, the cows didn't like and they left to grow, this way there's no having to cut down the grass afterwards because everybody's eating all the different types. Ideally, this is a great solution, except the horses decided to drive this new cow that they didn't know out of the fencing, and they drove her right through the fence. She broke through the fence, and she became kind of a feral cow because she didn't know us or the place. And she was loose in the woods. I tracked her, and it was pretty easy to track her because her hoof prints were really deep. And so I actually tracked her, and it seemed like she was following all the deer paths through the woods and eating where the deer ate and drinking water where the deer drank. I started realizing, actually there's a lot of similarities between cows and deer. But I couldn't kind of work with her because she didn't recognize me. So I was really feeling pretty anxious about this, and I fell asleep one night, and I woke up, and in the middle of the night, I had this thought that she was there, fell back asleep, and then I had this dream. And in the dream, this cow was looking at me, and she was on one side of the fence and I was on the other. And she had one antler on one side of her head. And I was thinking, whoa, she's in the fencing. It all worked out. And she's looking at me. I'm picking up on something from her. It's like a message, a communication. And she's saying, you're in the fencing. And I suddenly realized that I'm in the fence and she's on the outside of the fence. But there's no way to know. If you're looking at a fence line, and you don't see the whole thing, you just see the fence line. How do you know which side of the fence you're on? Are you fenced in? And the cow is on the outside? Or is the cow fenced in and you're on the outside? Which way is which? Beginning and end, very similar. Deer and cow, very similar. One antler, very interesting dream. But here we are at the beginning. I think I'd rather call it beginning times. Rather see it that way. I don't think I want to be fenced in. And this is what it's about a little bit. Let's explore.